So I wanted to look a little bit more into the window of tolerance and these two books being really good resources. And I'm using particularly Deb Dana's book about the exercises. I'm kind of using that for inspiration on some of the ways that we could work with this. So just as a little kind of a reminder, hypoarousal is when we're going into freeze. This is a dorsal vagal system. Hyperarousal is when we're getting agitated, anxious. So we go through from the window of tolerance where everything's cool, we have feeling of pretty comfortable, to dysregulation on either side, and then to hyperarousal or hypoarousal. And that's one of the ways that we can kind of work with this is to track, where am I in this? Am I in this calm, relaxed, trusting state? If I'm not, then which direction have I gone? So that's one of the things that we're going to work with. So I thought this was really interesting in Deb's book. She does a nervous system alphabet. So for dorsal, sympathetic arousal, and ventral vagal, she has A, B, C, D, E, all of these different words. So what I thought we could do with these three, this in the next two slides, is just to take about a minute, look at those words. And this is dorsal vagal. This is the shutdown. The question is this where you normally go? Is this home for you? How much of your time do you spend here now? So we could also do this as a practice in the past, which we will do another day. But how much time do you spend here now? So if you look at those words, do you resonate with a lot of the words on here? And the last question is something that relates to the what we did last week. And to some extent we can influence that. So we're, again, it's these involuntary nervous system responses. And when we're in freeze, it feels like we're just stuck there. And then how do we get ourselves out of that? So we might turn off the Netflix and go stand outside for a few minutes, or we might, call a friend, or we might, do these other things. How much time do you spend here? Just to take a moment to feel into that. And what is it that helps you to come out of this state, not shut down, collapsed? And make sure that you stay aware of your body, aware of your breath, aware of the safety in this moment that you're in right now. So, sympathetic arousal, the one in the middle, I'm in danger, I need to run or fight back. Also, involuntary. This is our involuntary nervous system. Just to look at those words: alarmed, buzzing, nasty, raging. And then, is sympathetic arousal home for you? And how much time do you spend here? Is this your more likely response when you feel threat? And you might have memories, you might feel that in your body. And this is hypervigilance. We're scanning, we're looking around, frightened. And if we go into that fight response, we're also judgmental, we can be nasty. How much time do you spend in this state? And then what helps you to come out of fight or flight? Taking a step back, counting to 10. But what helps you to come out of this state of fight or flight and come back into a calmer, more regulated state? And another term for this is emotional flooding, which some of you are familiar with as well. So it's when our cortisol and adrenaline flood the brain, and it takes about 20 minutes to come out of that. So if you're in a fight response in particular, or if you're running away, one of the things that can be helpful is to take a 20-minute break, especially if you're in a conversation or a fight with somebody. So, okay, I'm feeling really agitated right now, or I'm feeling like there's some things I want to say that I actually don't want to say. So I'm going to go for a walk for 20 minutes, or we'll come back to this, but I can't continue the conversation right now. So knowing that this takes about 20 minutes once we get the charge, it takes at least 20 minutes for it to settle, can be helpful too in terms of what helps us to come out of it. And then ventral vagal, also involuntary, although we can cultivate the conditions that help us to get here. Awesome, benevolent, courageous, devoted, all of these beautiful words: playful, relaxed, trusting, vibrant, whole. So, is ventral vagal home for you? And how much time do you spend here? If you think of maybe a typical week, we could also go pre COVID, during COVID, because the whole world changed for everybody. But just in the last week, even, do you have a sense of how much time you were in freeze or in fight, or how much time you were just generally feeling fairly well regulated emotionally and in your nervous system? And part of what helps us to self regulate into the ventral vagal state is what we were talking about with coming out of freeze or coming down from fight flight. But also, even when we're not totally activated on one end of that or the other, what is it that helps you to regulate? So it could be breathing, relaxation practices, coming to the daily practice, risking sharing something and then being met with passion. It's all kinds of ways. And then take a few deep breaths. So this is the inquiry. Pick a moment or a memory that's not a 10 out of 10. But what we're looking for is a moment that feels a little bit threatening. And we're looking to see how we know that. What is it about this that feels like that? So there's four questions. Their eyes are signaling. Bring up an image if you can, or a memory. Sometimes it's a look on somebody's face that signals contempt, or that's their voice sounds really angry, or so it's their eyes, their tone of voice, their face generally is expressing, and what their gestures convey. So if somebody is kind of shrinking in on themselves, you might see that they're feeling really anxious. If they're using their hands to kind of push you back, what do their gestures convey? So just pick something that you can work with. Look really specifically, sending the cues of safety or danger to your nervous system from their eyes, voice, face, and gestures. And what invites connection? So you might be thinking of a positive memory when you came into a party and a friend was there. What are their eyes signaling? They call you over. What does their tone of voice suggest? They gesture you over. So let's take about 3 minutes or so for this. As you're working with this, see if you've kind of gone off into something else. If so, just bring yourself back. Notice in your body. So we're looking at eyes, tone of voice, faces, and gestures. But how is that landing in your body? How do you know that that's affecting you? Are your shoulders tightening up? Have you stopped breathing as fully? What are the cues? And what does that feel like in your body and your nervous system? And we could be working with those even as we're noticing. Oh, I noticed that my breath got kind of tight, so I take a few deeper breaths. And that helps us to remember that we're here in this moment. We're not back in a memory, we're here. You can always pull back from this. And something else that is interesting to look at is what's your sense of how accurate your neuroception was at the time and in this moment? So, as you're remembering something, you're remembering an incident and how you responded to the incident. So, how much did your prior experience affect how you felt in the moment? And how much does it affect you right now? Let's take another minute or so to just notice that. What was the influence? And then bringing that to close. Take a few deep breaths, look around the room again, just kind of get yourself settled. Notice your feet, your seat. So, right now, my autonomic state is so we're just checking in with ourselves now, letting go of that memory that we were working with. My system is responding to, so does it feel like you're under threat? Are you still kind of feeling into those memories? And what does your body want to do? Oftentimes, when we're under some kind of threat, our body wants to get up and go. So you could also do that. You could move your body, you could stand up and shake for a moment. So right now I'm in dorsal vagal. I feel really sluggish, or right now I'm in sympathetic. My body's edgy. I want to get out of here. And so if you were to use these as prompts to write your short story about this, my brain makes up the story that. So this is acknowledging that our neuroception might not be perfect, but right now my autonomic state is my system is responding to these cues, and my body wants to. And one thing we notice is that our state, our autonomic state, is not set in stone, it changes. So we might have had times, or we might now even have times when we feel like we're in freeze for many days or weeks or months, that we kind of come out of it a little bit at times, but that's our overall state. But even within a persistent state, there's ups and downs. So, as we're paying attention closely, we're going to notice that things are changing, they're shifting. So, we might be taking some deep breaths, we might have gotten up and shook, and our energy is different now. So, you could look around the room, you could look into the faces of the people on Zoom or into my face, and see if you can bring yourself into a self regulation, but also into this connection. It might be connected to the greater world, it might be connected to yourself. It's okay with me right now what I'm feeling. I'm starting to settle. I'm not feeling as shut down. I'm not feeling as nervous. And we might even see that there's some changes. My body doesn't want to run away anymore. I notice that I'm more interested in taking some deep breaths and kind of perking up a little. So, how does your story change? How does your autonomic state change? And how does that affect what you're saying to yourself about it? And then let that come to the close. Come back into the room, your body, let all that move to the background. And now we're going to either come back to the same memory or a different memory. And we're going to look at the memory from the opposite side. So we're going to look at what are my eyes signaling? What is my tone of voice signaling? What's my face expressing? And what do my gestures convey? So if you were to think of, you don't have to think of a painful memory, you could think of whatever comes up, but not something 10 out of 10. So if you're thinking about, getting together with someone you love, what do your eyes signal? What invites connection and what prompts disconnection? And this is this engagement of one nervous system to another. And what could you do to move and to stay into ventral vagal, especially if you feel like you're signaling some kind of fight response or you're really kind of disengaged in a freeze response. Stay in your breath and in your body. And if you'd like, you could do a replay in your imagination as well. You could change what you're signaling to the other person. Maybe you're having that argument for the thousandth time with somebody and you're impatient and angry, and then you down regulate, you come into more of a ventral vagal. And then what could you do to change what you're signaling to them? Stay really present in your body, your breath. Where are you now? Are you in ventral vagal? Are you in fight or flight? Are you shut down? And as you're working through a connection or an experience with somebody in your mind, in your imagination, feel it really in your body as well. And as you change and become more regulated, can they co regulate with you? Are they also coming into more of a trusting, relaxed state? And then how is that affecting you? If their tone of voice softens, if they start to express more engagement, co regulate into ventral vagal with them. And finish up what you're doing and come back to the group. Take a minute or so if you want to make a note of something or just to kind of finish up.